Hello, I'm Kathleen Jeffrey. By now, most people are aware of the subprime mortgage meltdown, which has shaken everyone from Wall Street to Main Street. But while the Fed has been busy cutting rates in an effort to jumpstart the economy, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have been tightening their lending guidelines. And a new twist for home buyers in the market for financing a home they may have their eye on is that in addition to ensuring they can afford the home and have good credit and FICO scores, they may also need to be concerned with the location the home is located in, as some mortgage insurers are making lists of areas they consider to be in distress areas or declining values. If the area you are buying in is on this list, you may be subjected to stricter loan-to-value guidelines. At a recent Selectmen's meeting, Hull Selectman Ron Davey raised the question if Hull may be on any such list, and if so, what could be done about it. I did a little research, and I discovered that Hull, along with surrounding communities throughout the South Shore, appears on the distress list for Genworth Financial. I contacted Mr. Davey for this video to discuss his concerns. Senator Kerry's office also issued a response for this story.
Hi, my name's Ron Davey. I'm a selectman in Hull.
I was just wondering if I could get you to recap a little bit what happened selectmen's meeting where you were discussing problems with some people maybe getting mortgages in Hull and the area around it.
Sure, be happy to do that. I brought it up at the meeting because I read a recent article in the Wall Street Journal talking about blacklisting hitting home sellers, and it talked about several major mortgage companies that were tightening up on the underwriting standards, and they named several of them. Basically, I'm concerned about the impact that it would have on any community that was on this quote blacklist. If the mortgage money tightens up, it decreases the number of people who can get mortgages, and therefore decreases the number of potential buyers, which has an impact on the housing values. So the question that I asked, I said I ran across this. I've heard anecdotal information, third party, nothing directly, that Hull may be on a blacklist, if you will, and I understand perhaps maybe it might be countywide. So I just asked the question that I'd like to have the board discuss it at a future meeting to see if they can determine whether in fact Hull is on such a list, or if there is such a list in Massachusetts, and recognizing that there was little a Board of Selectmen can do about it other than asking our legislative representatives to express their displeasure on it. So that led to the discussion about that as a course of action, and the board, after some discussion, felt that why don't we send a letter to, or suggested that the board send a letter to the Attorney General asking them to look into it. So that's kind of a little bit of background for you.
Just wondering if you happen to know any of the criteria that these mortgage companies may be using to actually put people on.
Well, it's not people's, and first of all, I want to make.
I know, yeah, regions, right? Exactly.
Right.
Regions.
It's and the reason that I'm not suggesting there's redlining going on, which is based on socioeconomic factors, but if it's taking a look at market areas where there are declining values, and I think that's the term that they use in it, identifying areas that are declining values, and that tightens up the mortgage standards, underwriting standards.
Exactly, and they put them on mortgage insurers actually call it a distressed list for declining areas, which you would think would be the entire country except for maybe New York City.
Well, I think there are areas that are probably harder hit than others, and the other thing that I didn't get into that night, but is I read through this article, they were also not only looking at geographic areas, which they can do, but they were also looking at particular housing units, what condominiums versus single-family housing, for example. In some areas, condominiums as a group fall into that category.
Right, and this actually came from a March 5th Wall Street Journal.
March 5th Wall Street Journal article, right? And so I try to keep an eye on things, at a macro level that may impact Hull, and this is one of the things that I ran across. I thought it would be worthwhile to explore because it will have or it could have a major impact.
And could I just ask you to touch on? I understand that Selectman Riley said that he knew of a woman who had a $100,000. She had been approved for a $100,000 equity line, and she only used about $10,000 of it, and suddenly the bank sort of closed off her equity line. And then I understand that gentleman in the audience got up and he talked about how he was getting a higher rate, and he thought it was based on the fact that the home was in Hull. Do you recall any of that happening?
Yeah, well, it did. Chairman Riley did mention that. Now, I don't have any personal knowledge of that, but certainly that was a comment was made by Mr. Riley, and then there was a gentleman in the office or in the meeting who mentioned that he had some trouble, financing or refinancing properties. The rate was higher than he would have expected. But again, I don't have personal information on that. The only thing that I bring to the table is there seems to be a general problem, general issue, and I'm just concerned whether Hull is impacted on it. But I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it.
Sure. Are you asking people who are residents or hoping to be residents in Hull who have had problems to notify the selectmen or an office in Hull so that they can keep tabs on it?
Well, we haven't asked them that. What we've asked is, our intent, after this discussion was to send a letter to the Attorney General and ask her to investigate it. And that's as far as we went. But I'm sure if folks ran across this, certainly they could call Town Hall, Office of the Board of Selectmen, or the Attorney General's office. I'm not saying they should call the Attorney General's office because that's not my place to do. But I think it would be helpful to see if we could quantify it.
My name's Michelle Cundis, and I work for Seacoast Homes in Hull, which is right next to beautiful Nantasket Beach.
Great. And can you tell me, how do you feel about mortgages? What's going on in the market? Do you think that Hull is being singled out more than other areas as far as how people are having trouble getting mortgages?
I don't think it's necessarily a town-by-town issue that we've noticed. Everything with the subprime lending and the things that are going on with the lending companies is clearly having a giant effect on people of getting a mortgage in general. There are programs that, 2 years ago, 6 months ago, don't exist now. So it's getting more difficult for everybody as a whole, but for those that are on the subprime rate, people with less than perfect credit or not enough to put down, it's clearly, it's hindering them. It's definitely slowing them down, making it more difficult.
For this story, Bridget O'Rourke in Senator Kerry's office issued this statement. New estimates show that foreclosures will reach record highs again this year in Massachusetts. Thousands of Massachusetts families, including dozens in the Hull area, are inches away from losing their homes. Senator Kerry is committed to finding solutions to help them avoid foreclosure. He will also continue to do all he can to ensure that big mortgage companies do not take advantage of the little guy or target certain areas of the nation with undue restrictions. Senator Kennedy also responded for this story, saying, "It is outrageous that some mortgage lenders are now blacklisting whole communities as high risk and using it as a pretext to raise interest rates on home loans even higher for all borrowers." Mr. Kennedy went on to say that Congress has a responsibility to stop such gouging and guarantee fair lending practices for home loans. This is Kathleen Jeffrey.